The reports have come in, and it seems that as of now, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is safe. Hey, I'm Adrian, and in this video we'll go through what's been happening behind closed doors at United to the best of our ability. Of course, how the players feel. Conte is keen on the job, we'll look at that as well, and whether he would be a good fit. Try to dispel some of the fears surrounding Conte. And if you want to keep up to date on this entire situation, then our sponsors for this video, OneFootball, have got you covered. OneFootball's app provides you with the fastest breaking news to make sure that you're up to date on everything in the football world as soon as it happens. Follow the players, clubs, competitions, and countries that you care about, and your newsfeed will be perfectly tailored to your interests. Watch various videos such as highlights and player interviews, track transfers, and you can even watch matches live through the app, such as the Polish Ekstraklasa and the Scottish Premiership, amongst others. So use the link in the description for a free download on the operating system of your choosing and enjoy the world of football while helping out an independent creator such as myself. All right, let's get into it. As widely reported by many well-connected journalists, the likes of Laurie Whitwell, Fabrizio Romano, and Nicolo Schira, Manchester United's various board members, including one Sir Alex Ferguson, met early on Monday morning to discuss the manager position at the club following a string of poor performances under Ole. There were some wins along the way, but none of them very convincing, with the massive embarrassment of a 5-0 drubbing at home against the Liverpool side that basically were playing at around 70 to 80% of much of the match. That truly exposed their deficiencies, didn't it? And so the understanding is that after these meetings between the board, the decision they came to was to stick with Ole and give him one last chance. Laurie Whitwell, the top Manchester United correspondent for The Athletic, wrote that the board articulated Solskjaer as safe for now, in quotation marks, with the overarching sentiment from the board being that they want to give him at least a chance with the fixtures against Tottenham this weekend, and if that goes well, against Atalanta, and if that goes well, against Manchester City. Speaking of his performances of late, it's been quite the poor season. After starting so well, they've allowed the likes of Arsenal to catch up to them, who kicked off the season with 3 consecutive losses, you'll remember, and not a single goal scored. United, on the other hand, had 3 wins and a draw to start off their season, which is great, but a 2-1 loss to Young Boys kicked off a string of poor performances from the club. It wasn't the end of their winning period, but even the wins felt like a grind, and were not convincing in the slightest. The defense, which at points last season seemed to have been relatively sorted out, is leaking goals left, right, and center. United have managed to keep just 1 clean sheet this season from 13 matches, that one coming away to Wolves, in which 5 saves from De Gea kept Wolves in their 2.06 expected goals off the board completely. United's expected goals in that game, 0.85. Aside from that, United have conceded 20 goals across those 13 matches at an average of 1.54 goals per match. As far as scoring goes, things looked great early on with their big 5-1 win over Leeds, a side that's struggling, and the 4-1 win over Newcastle looked good as well. But since that victory against Steve Bruce's former side, United have scored an average of just 1.22 goals per match. Across the entirety of the season, their average is 1.69. As for the performances not being great, as we saw most obviously against Atalanta and Liverpool even worse, United have dug themselves into a hole early and have relied on some rallying late on in the match. We saw it against Atalanta and Villarreal, and they were close to a loss to Everton, if not for an offside and a Tom Davies decision to square the ball instead of having a go on goal. As noted by journalist Gabriele Marcotti to illustrate their slow starts and late flurries, if matches ended at the 80th minute mark, United would have won just 2 matches across the entirety of this season. Now, I can read the comments already that are saying, stupid stat, matches are 80 minutes, not 90, so it doesn't count. But that's ignoring the entire point. The point being that United get themselves into bad positions on a regular basis and rely upon a late flurry and sometimes some sort of individual heroics in order to bail them out, as opposed to a controlled, routine win, especially when they have a far superior squad than many of the opponents they've faced this season. In fact, I don't know that we've seen that since the Newcastle win, really. One of the worst sides in the entire league who are yet to win a game, let alone reach 5 points after 9 attempts. The performances have been bad and they've seemingly gotten worse, hence all of the pressure currently and further calls for a new manager from the fan base. Parts of the fan base, I should say. As noted by plenty, and as we will see from some quotes from United's players, the dressing room will no doubt be divided when it comes to Ole, and that's understandable, as some have greatly benefit from Ole being around. People will undoubtedly point to McTominay and Fred as being some of those players. But on top of that, even someone like Luke Shaw, who really found himself under Ole, has been openly critical of the manager's tactics, along with others who have flourished under the manager previously. Pogba is one of those players that has flourished under Ole at times. More so than under Mourinho, that's for sure. Ole's start as United manager saw Pogba go on a breathtaking run of form, but contract negotiations, failed ones at that, and other events along the way have sort of clouded his relationship with Ole a bit. After their 4-2 loss to Leicester in October of 2021, Pogba had this to say, quote, "We have been having these kinds of games for a long time and haven't found the problem. We have conceded easy and stupid goals. We need to find the key for this change because we deserved to lose. I don't know if it is the mindset of the players. We need to change something. We need to find the mentality and tactics to win. We have to look as individuals and as a team to fix this." Another player who has flourished under Ole, Bruno Fernandes, though to be fair to Bruno, he'd been flourishing in a poor Sporting side for a long time before coming to United and helping to lift them. After United's 1-1 draw at home against Everton, which could have been a loss, remember, he had this to say, quote, "We have to learn and the time is now. We cannot do this anymore. We did it so many times. We cannot slow the game down when we're winning. We have to make it quicker, score once again, get 1 or 2 more goals, and after that, maybe you can slow it down and make them run a bit more." It can't be on the players to make these calls, of course. It has to come from the manager. And in that same vein, here are some of the damning remarks made by Luke Shaw, a player who, as we said, found himself once again under Ole. But here's what he had to say following their drubbing versus Liverpool. Quote, "Are we doing everything right and preparing right for the games in ourselves? Of course we have the tactics and how the manager wants us to play, but I think at times we're way too easy to play against. I think, for example, you look at the first goal, it can't be possible that they can have sort of 3 running through in the first 5 minutes. We need to be more compact. We need to be better, and we know that. I think also maybe we can say this result was coming. I think in the past games where we've won, we haven't been at our best, and we know that. We felt that inside the dressing room, and today we need to reflect and we have to move on from this because it hurts." He speaks of a lack of organization in their defense and midfield, which, comes down to the manager, and he speaks of how the players in the dressing room knew this result was coming. Because even when they have won, as we sort of mentioned, it's been a grind. They haven't been at their best. And finally, David De Gea's scathing remarks following their 5-0 beatdown, as he said that United were playing like kids. From his point of view, you can't blame him for feeling otherwise. United's defensive shape was all over the place. They were losing the ball in their own end, and in turn, leaving De Gea completely exposed at times. A contributing factor to this will no doubt have been Solskjaer's decision to move away from what brought him success in big games in the past, sitting deep and countering. Instead, he went for the high press. And according to Laurie Whitwell, in an article for The Athletic, sources have said that players were confused by pre-match tactics. Solskjaer is said to have given an instruction to press high on Liverpool, but players were unsure of the exact coordination. In training, United do not train much pressing, with an explanation being that the strategy under Solskjaer is for the nearest man to the ball to close down the opponent in possession as the team track back and get into shape. Without cohesion in the press, without the team moving as a unit in a coordinated manner, you'll do yourself more harm than good, as you're breaking shape and creating spaces for the opposition. That's exactly what happened against Liverpool, over and over again, with no changes made to fix the problem. When you press alone, you're essentially pulling yourself out of position and creating a hole for your opponent to go through. Now, just going through the edit here, and I should include, as I was making this video and after I had recorded, some players did come out with words of support for Ole, the timing of which coming after all of the news that Ole had one last chance over the next 3 or so matches to right the ship. Another report came out from Samuel Luckhurst of the Manchester Evening News. So, we all know the reputation Manchester Evening News has, so take from this what you will, as the record is a bit spotty, but as I understand, Luckhurst is actually a decent source, but he wrote this. Sources say Ronaldo is holding the dressing room together and he has encouraged teammates to support beleaguered manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Ronaldo advised the United players to not down tools, irrespective of what they thought of Solskjaer's tactics, until an eventual change of manager. That last part is still a little worrying, of course, as it's not exactly massive support for Ole, more just saying, guys, let's not stop playing just because we don't believe in the manager. Let's keep playing until a new manager comes in. According to Fabrizio Romano, Antonio Conte is extremely interested in the Manchester United job, but there has been no move to negotiate with him yet. And I won't even bother speaking about Zinedine Zidane and whether he would be a fit, because Zidane is not interested in the job. As the title of this section says, Antonio Conte divides the United board somewhat. Me personally, and I know many have issues with Conte, but I personally am a great believer in him as a manager. There are some myths about him leaving teams in shambles, but that's not really fair, and I'm not sure where it came from. He kicked off Juve's golden era where they won 9 titles in a row, starting back in the 2011-12 season, his first with the club as manager. Prior to that, Juventus hadn't won the league since 2003, officially, remember. And funnily enough, Conte was the one to end Juve's dominance with Inter just last season. But anyway, after leaving Juve for the Italian national team, Juve's dominance continued under Allegri, so he didn't destroy them there. At Chelsea, he changed the team completely by starting out with a back 4, but switching to a back 3, and they stormed the league. In his final season, his second season, he was embroiled in some legal matters with his own club, but still managed to win an FA Cup on his way out the door. Sarri followed, Sarri was underwhelming, Lampard then followed Sarri, he was underwhelming, and Tuchel changed Chelsea back to the back 3, and they flourished again. To pin that on Conte is just disingenuous. What I will say about Conte, and this is probably the reason as to why United's board are divided on him, is that he is a very, very demanding manager that is demanding not only of his own players and the standards that he sets, but of the board as well. He does not let down when he believes that a player is needed or a staff member is needed in order for him and his team to succeed. And given his record of winning the league everywhere he's gone since being with Juventus, I mean, you'd be smart to listen to his demands. One thing that people point to as a potential issue with Conte is his European record, and I absolutely agree. That is a major issue of his. He has failed time and time again in the Champions League, even failing to beat Sevilla in the Europa League final when he made it with Inter. A bit unlucky as the strike was going wide before deflecting off of Lukaku and in, but the point remains. His European record sucks. But when you're Manchester United and you haven't won the league since 2013 when Sir Alex Ferguson was around, perhaps you should shift your focus to sorting out your domestic form before thinking about your European chances. And finally, he is painted as an inflexible manager tactically, that he will only use the 3-5-2 formation. I want to give a huge shout out to Uncle Sharma here, as he is a Conte disciple. And if Conte is signed by United, we're going to have to get Sharma on here once again. But Uncle Sharma notes that Antonio Conte actually wrote his coaching thesis on the 4-4-2 diamond formation. If you look at Conte's time with Juve, he played either a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-4. At Chelsea, he tried the back 4 before switching to a back 3 and finding success. He's not as one-dimensional as people think. And so the things that were working under Solskjaer in the past aren't working anymore, don't seem to be at this moment. And while the squad has improved, I don't know that you can say the manager has improved as well. He's been a manager for 10 years now, a decade. If United were to sign Antonio Conte, I'm willing to bet it wouldn't be as bad as people make it out to be. But of course, only time can answer that question, because Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is still the Manchester United manager. He will be until further notice, basically. And so we're all just guessing at an uncertain future at the moment. But that's it for this video, guys. I want to thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video or you learned something new, do hit that like button for me and subscribe with notifications on if you are new around here. I'm Adrian, this is Rabona TV, and I love you. Ciao.